If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just speak love and watch the smiles come, bring my spirits up. There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my coverage of the Kristin Smart Trial. Day 2 of week 7, so Tuesday, August 30th of 2022. And today we have some exciting testimony. We're going to hear about calls intercepted between Paul and his mother, Susan, during wiretaps. We're also going to cover the search of Paul's San Pedro home in Southern California with the serving of the search warrant. And we'll also hear from another decomposition dog, this time searching Ruben's house.
Today, more witnesses took the stand in the Kristin Smart murder trial.
First on the stand today was SLO County Sheriff's Department Senior Deputy Jason Nadal, and he testified about his search of Paul's San Pedro home on February 5th of 2020. Get your popcorn for this. I know some of the disgusting items that were seized that day, but I'm sure there's more, and the details are even worse than what I've already heard, I'm sure. So Nadal showed photos of Paul's 938 West Upland Avenue home in San Pedro, California, the pictures from the search itself, and don't forget all 4 family homes were served and searched simultaneously. As he does with incriminating photos, Sanger objected multiple times, arguing against admitting the photos into evidence. Pictures inside showed close-ups. There was also exterior pictures and multiple pictures taken in the home as well. I couldn't find any pictures of Deputy Nadal from court, so I found him here. So slight detour. In 2010, 12 years ago, the deputy looked so young. And here he's a hero. He saved a toddler from drowning in a swimming pool. He did CPR and saved the little boy's life. Amen. Thank you for your service, sir. With my curiosity level, I always want to see what these people look like. And when I research it, if I don't see the pictures through the court coverage, oftentimes I find out something pretty cool. And today what I found out really warmed my heart. For whatever reason, mainstream media did not cover the search details in court today. I'll share what I know from the unsealed warrants themselves. Trigger warning. There is some sexual assault content coming up here. It can be sensitive, so some of you may need to fast forward. All right, so moving on. Along with court filings, and of course the 24 women that were raped or sexually assaulted by Paul in some way. Here we see one search warrant had these items seized. Electronic devices that had numerous homemade videos with Paul having sex with women. Some of them were in and out of consciousness. Do you think he got permission to tape them when he raped them without permission? Oh my gosh, I just can't stand him. Maybe the media didn't cover this evidence today because it's disgusting and graphic and not appropriate for TV, of course. But not even the most reliable source, Chris Lambert, covered it in his tweets. Regardless, I'll share more of the unsealed details of the search of Paul's home. I agree, it is touchy stuff. We want the truth here. If you need to skip ahead, the next 2 witnesses will not include sexual assault testimony. It's just the first one here. The videos seized on Paul's hard drive were filed in a folder labeled, quote, practice, end quote, and another contained at least one video with a woman with a ball gag in her mouth. And we've already heard in previous testimony that he did force ball gags in women's mouths. I wonder if this video could be one of them. It's just... Anyway, here is some of the perverted searches that Paul did on Google. By the way, guys, before I go over that, I don't judge people for what they do in their own bedrooms. I don't care, toys, fetish, whatever. But the key is consent, okay? So he Googled, one Google search was real drunken girls. Another Google search was drugged and raped while passed out. Maybe the jury isn't even hearing this. Maybe it's considered more prejudicial than probative. But I sure hope the jury has privy to this. This really tells us about his perversions and his MOs. The prosecution in preliminary hearing said Paul had 2 prescription drugs considered date rape drugs at his home as well that were seized during the search, tramadol and Flexerol. Previously, quotes from the prosecution said things such as, this one's powerful here, quote, Paul Flores has raped and victimized so many women, it's hard to keep track, end quote. Damn. All right, pet peeve. The media and the far reaches and the mistakes and the stuff that becomes false information indefinitely because they don't report it correctly. Well, the search warrant regarding the mattress, I came across that today, and it doesn't say blood here if you look. And okay, here's the human blood found in the Kristin's grave at Ruben's house, and they clearly state it as blood. So I wish people would just stick to the facts and what's said in court directly. A stain doesn't mean blood. We've already learned, if you've been watching our episodes, there's all kinds of things that are considered evidentiary stains. During cross-examination with Robert Sanger, Nadal admitted that he, along with at least 2 other officers, surveilled Paul as he got in his car and went to work and came back, that sort of thing. Nadal referred to it as keeping watch over Paul. Nadal also confirmed that law enforcement put a GPS tracker on Paul's car and installed a spy camera on a telephone pole by his house. Okay, wow, that's a lot. Sorry, I gotta say it. I rarely do this here, but I must vent a little bit. I know there are endless what-ifs to this case, and if-onlys, and so on. So if only they took, quote, keeping watch that seriously back in 1996, 1997, 1998. They weren't that sly. Kristin was hidden in plain sight and then moved under their noses from Ruben's house, Paul's dad's home. And that was only days after the search warrants were served. How does this even happen? It just makes me want to scream. Why weren't they watching their house? They should have known they'd scramble more after the search warrants. It makes me thank our lucky stars for Chris Lambert, his podcast, and his devotion and commitment to justice for Kristin. He is a hero to me, no matter how this ends up. But I have faith in justice for Kristin. Sanger challenged the deputy on the 8 or so cops on scene at the search, especially for such a small house, Sanger said. To the contrary, Nadal maintained that he, quote, usually has about that many officers with him to execute the searches, end quote. Even the FBI's searched Paul's San Pedro home. Hopefully that testimony will be coming soon as well. It does seem to be a very touchy subject for the court. Paul's car ended up being searched as well with a warrant, and I came across many neighbors' statements that Paul was quiet and paranoid. I bet he was, and rightfully so. Not only was he the suspect of a rape and murder, but over 29 women have been sexually assaulted by him or more. We don't know how many. You better watch your back when you have that kind of stuff going on. That's not a threat. That's just an observation. He's left way too many victims in his wake. Sanger tried to pin Nadal down on the media presence that was there that day. Nadal admitted to seeing people with cameras and the photos of that scene showing up in the press. Nadal couldn't say who the people were, and Sanger asked about the news crew's vehicles on scene, but Nadal continued to insist, quote, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Following questioning from Pavel, Paul's attorney Robert Sanger asked Nadal about his role in the search. Nadal said that he'd coordinated the search efforts and admitted that Detective Clint Cole had briefed him before the search warrant was served, but he could not remember if Cole had been present at the time of the search.
Rabbit hole time. Come with me down the rabbit hole. No, I didn't miss there where it said Paul is smart, according to the neighbors. I tried to ignore it, but let's just look at a few things. I know he never finished college. I know he never stayed at any jobs, and that could be because his notoriety. I don't know. He had many run-ins with the law, not having anything to do with this case. He actually had a jailhouse informant who he became friends with, believe it or not. And I don't know much about many of his jobs. I know he worked at Coca-Cola. And also in 1997, when he lived in Orange County, he worked at Blockbuster Videos, which probably isn't considered a high-skilled job for such a smart person. That April in 97, the officers went by to find Paul, and they were looking around town for him and couldn't locate him, so they went by Blockbuster, his job, and left a flyer there regarding the case for the manager. I love that. Another time, while police were interviewing waitresses at a bar, one of the waitresses spotted Paul pull up in a cab with friends, and they were drinking, including Paul, which was violation of probation right there. And Paul spotted the cops and ended up running, but they did catch him, and they booked him in Santa Barbara County Jail. Paul never did confess or change his story about Kristin when he was speaking to the jailhouse informant, and they remained friends, like I said, after jail. They even went fishing at Catalina Island, and that was another unsuccessful attempt to record a confession. And at the preliminary hearing, one of them, Misek asked if it was known the FBI had a $50,000 budget to investigate Paul, and asked about another time when Paul and the jail informant went to Vegas, too. Wow! Perks of being a murderer, I guess.
The next witness to testify was Gregory Smith, a senior detective for the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office. Smith testified that in January of 2020, he received permission from a San Luis Obispo County judge to wiretap the phones of the Flores family.
Second on the stand today was Greg Smith, who is a SLO deputy sheriff who participated in the wiretapping of Paul, Ruben, Susan, and Linda Flores' phones from January to February 2020. Did you catch that? I had to do a double take. I've never heard Irma Linda referred to as Linda. It's tripping me out a little bit, but anyway. The prosecution reviewed the wiretap details from January 6th through February 3rd of 2020, and then Sanger attempted to pick it apart. The cross-examination lasted quite some time, actually. Sanger says to Smith, quote, "Let's put this into context here. If we can, from January 6th to February 3rd, you had permission to intercept communications." Smith answered, "Yes, sir." Sanger tried to confirm that there was 3,447 communications involving Paul's phone. Smith answered he didn't know the actual number. They did both agree that the total number of the phone communications intercepted was 9,587. They went over the investigation over the years. They mentioned the investigation was dormant for some time, and Detective Cole came around the same time that Your Own Backyard. He came around the same time that Your Own Backyard podcast was at episode 6. By the way, say that 4 times fast. Your own backyard, your own backyard. I guess it's not that hard. I get tongue-tied sometimes doing these because it's a lot of speaking. So yes, they were 6 episodes out already when the wiretaps began. Smith admitted to listening to the podcast. Prevel objected on relevance when Sanger wanted to name titles of the podcast. The objection was sustained as to the titles, and Sanger claims the podcast was focused on Paul, which Smith disagreed. Judge O'Keefe calls a sidebar. Side note, can you imagine how badly the jurors want to listen to the podcast if they haven't? They come back, and Sanger actually does end up naming the following titles. One title was The Only Suspect. Another title was Their Own Backyard. Another title was Sons of Susan. It was revealed that law enforcement leaked information to Chris Lambert so the Floreses might hear and say something incriminating. Smith disagreed that it was provocative information.
Investigators in the Kristin Smart murder case admit they leaked information to a podcaster on purpose. The San Luis Obispo Sheriff's investigator took the stand today saying the leaks were part of the department's strategy when they then wiretapped the Flores family phones to see if they'd say something incriminating.
In one call that was intercepted, Susan told Paul to contact his attorney, Mel. And we've already covered Mel in the previous episodes. Remember, he's the one that did the deposition where Paul pled the fifth over 27 times. He was also part of the plea negotiations trying to get manslaughter if Paul showed them where the body is. So moving on, Smith admitted that as of 2020, people were harassing the Flores family with hate mail, honking, etc. And speaking of perceived harassment by Susan, this is a perfect time for me to introduce another unsealed document. We love these unsealed documents. This one's quite interesting. So, here are Susan's honk logs. She actually refers to them by title as beeping logs. It's an organized spreadsheet with columns to record the horn beeps near her house. No false beeping in the neighborhood. Is it a no beep zone? I'm just kidding. She's really too much. The log starts in 2008 and includes the date, the time, the number of beeps, the direction of travel. And there's a column with different notes with things like truck horn, older car horn, horn the entire block, very late. She documents trial notes as well, like Paul and Ruben's preliminary hearing, etc., right on there, date specific. Her boyfriend even took pictures, apparently, according to some of the notations. I wonder what the grand plan was. Take horns away from all of us in Arroyo Grande? I see a note there that Mike was subpoenaed to testify. Also another note that a lady was hanging out the window. Even some people are named on the report. And in 2011, Susan claims the garbage man is joining the fun for his 6 a.m. honks. January through August, at one point, she noted she was tired of keeping the record, but she got back on board and continued through all the way through 2021. Man, that woman has dedication. Unfortunately, it's dedication to all the wrong things. Notice at the bottom of the last line where she says, few beeps in 2022 due to the preliminary hearing. Go figure. Sanger attempted to get Smith to agree that he was aware of hate mail, harassment, pressure, and people driving by, things like that. However, Smith said he had no personal knowledge of that. But he agreed some people took it upon themselves to investigate the case throughout the years, and that last part was an actual quote. Singer claims that police recorded over 10,000 calls. Oh my, FYI, I have never done anything like that. Despite my emotions and passion for this case, I would never want to interfere. I have driven by, but I've never honked or harassed or anything like that. Even though I've wanted to, I'm not going to lie. If I'm being perfectly honest, I actually freak out and get super nervous and panicky when I see them come outside if we're driving by. Smith agreed he did not hear Paul say he was going to make up a story or manufacture evidence. Do you guys think the Floreses were careful and suspected being surveilled and wiretapped? I personally don't feel Susan's brain works that way, but they're pretty unpredictable. Who knows? Sanger mentions Susan laughing in a phone call with Paul about a reporter from Stockton who came to talk to Paul at the gas station where he worked. Let's take a closer look at that. Apparently, Susan was referring to this Facebook commentary, and I know she stalks that Facebook page, and I also have some pretty clear indications that she watches my channel as well. So let's get into what was said. I made several trips to San Luis Obispo to cover Kristin's story for the Stockton Record. On one trip, after cadaver dogs had alerted on Paul's dorm room, I tracked him down at a gas station where he worked. I let him fill my car with gas and wash my windshield. It was unnerving as hell, watching him calmly squeegee the glass just inches away. Ugh. Anyway, sorry, my stomach turned there. Moving on. He headed toward the gas station office after I paid. I got out of the car and walked after him. I wasn't just there to buy gas, I said. I want to talk to him about Kristin Smart. He interrupted and said, I know who you are. You're, and it's redacted, from the Stockton Record. This was before newspapers were even online and before social media. There was no way he would know what I looked like. It gave me chills, she said. As he walked away, he said his lawyers had told him not to talk. Then he stopped, turned around and said, You want to know how I know who you are? Yes, of course I did. His answer was, quote, The registration in your front window says Stockton Record on it, end quote. Ooh, creepy. To this day, I'm spooked by how calmly he washed the windshield, even after realizing who I was and why I was there. And I wonder if he really did want to tell me something. All right, let's take a little detour here. Let's chat about Creepo Paul. I just wonder how they ended up so twisted. I know Susan claims she grew up poor and in a rough area. It all starts somewhere, in my opinion. I feel like it started before Susan and Ruben. I have zero knowledge to back this up, so I could be completely wrong. But there's never been a word, nor hide nor hair, of any grandparents on either side that I've ever heard of over 26 years. I know about the one cousin who confirmed that Paul's a pervert, and the one aunt who was in denial and oblivious. Someone I know just had an interaction with Susan as well, and it was a prolonged interaction. We'll talk about that in her episode. She's definitely a weirdo, confirmed repeatedly. Hopefully I will end up doing her episode. I'm telling you, that's how much she concerns me. I'm worried about retaliation. She's so vindictive and evil and cold-hearted, and she's known to search the internet to find what's being said about her and her family. Some occurrences led me to believe she's even watching these videos, like I said, which makes my skin crawl. Prevel objected when Sanger said there was no indication the Floreses were lying, which was sustained. The question was rephrased to, quote, You didn't hear my client say he was going to make up a story? Answer, no. Sanger referred to the conversation with Susan and Paul and asked Detective Smith if Susan had wanted to make sure Paul was legally covered. Smith agreed.
In one recorded call between Flores and his mom, she tells him to listen to the podcast to punch holes in the investigation.
An audio conversation between Paul Flores and his mother Susan from January 26, 2020 was then played in the courtroom, where Susan could be heard telling Paul to start listening to the podcast so they could start, quote, punching holes in it. During cross-examination, Sanger asked Smith if he had heard Paul talk about bringing forth false information once the trial began. Detective Smith answered that he had not.
The actual tape was played for the jury, and at one point during redirect, Prevel asked Smith if that was the only time during the surveillance that Susan asked Paul a question and Paul did not have any response. Smith confirmed that. He also said that Susan Flores changed topics after that, and she said, You're the only one who can tell me. During that call, she said that. And Smith was excused at 11:47 a.m., so the court broke for lunch early, and I'm going to say that was a lot of testimony to get in before lunch. I'm impressed. Way to go. Maybe this will actually wrap up by October. I hope so. You already know how I am not impressed with major media outlets because they get this stuff wrong. They declared that Misick declined to cross-examine either of the witnesses this morning when actually this was what went on, and I find this a slight bit interesting. And it's kind of a WTH. I feel like this dude's getting pretty bored or feeling left out. So Misik stands up and says to Mr. Smith, quote, "Hello, Mr. Smith, how are you?" Smith answers, "Good." Misik then says, quote, "No questions, just wanted to say hi." The nerve of that, especially when Singer keeps objecting that consumption of court's time, wasting court's time, and doesn't want certain things into evidence because it could be a waste of time. So that was really weird in my opinion, and I would definitely consider that a waste of the court's time. And major media they're like, nope, he didn't cross-examine. Nothing major, but kind of annoying. Good morning. First, let me apologize for my morning voice if it sounds a little weird. It's really early. So let's continue on with testimony in the afternoon with a new witness whose name is Christine Black. She goes by Chris, and she is the assistant director in Santa Clara County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team, and she works with dogs trained to only search for human remains. She has 20 years experience. Smith's been working since 2002 and certifies canines. She testified about her first dog, Klaus. The prosecution asked about the next dog she trained. Singer objects on 352, which is consumption of court's time and relevance. Speaking of the devil, that's one of his favorites, which are usually always overruled. But anyway, Judge O'Keefe said, quote, "Okay, I'm going to respectfully overrule." Osara was the next dog that she spoke about, and Annie is the current dog. Annie's a 5-year-old Belgian Malinois, trained since 2017 as human remains detective dog. She got Annie at 10 weeks old and started training her right away with human bones. At 5 months, At 5 months, she was training with human bones, an hour and a half each day, after already having the bones, quote unquote, imprinted on her scent, end quote, at 10 weeks old. Black reviewed various trainings done with Annie, similar to the other handlers we've heard from in the court. Annie is trained to recert each year. Annie alerts by laying down. We have learned dogs are trained in various alerts that are unique to each dog and how they're trained. Annie located a body in a homicide case 6 feet down in Tulare County, among other homicide searches. In Fresno, Annie helped find a 4-year-old case, alerted where the body was found 9 feet down in that one. Annie also searched a yard without alert. The importance of that was that there was a dead dog in the yard and Annie did not hit on it. Annie has trained hundreds of hours initially to be effective. Once this was all established, the prosecution asked the court to designate Black an expert. Singer, of course, objected to that. No surprise there. Do you get the feeling he doesn't like search dogs very much? Judge O'Keefe designated Black as an expert in human remain detection. Now she's an expert, and they're going to get down to it. On March 15th, 2021, they searched Ruben's house. As usual, few details were provided to her before she searched, but Annie was to search a backyard and a vehicle. The first search was of a Volkswagen in the driveway. Annie did not alert on the Volkswagen or the backyard, but once under the deck, that all changed. She detected odor under the deck, so Black informed Detective Cole, but Annie did not go to her final alert. Remember, that's actually laying down. Black explained that if something had been removed, that would explain lack of an actual alert. The prosecution wanted to know if she believed it was consistent with an item being removed. Uh-oh, Paul's goose is cooked. I haven't used that slide in a while. Let me throw that in here. Singer objects on improper hypothetical, which was overruled. She said, quote, "She had located the scent, but the body was not there," end quote. The prosecution wanted Black to confirm Annie's behavior was consistent with training on moved remains. Singer objects, leading improper hypothetical. Overruled. The answer was yes, quote, I saw the same behavior in training. Jury question, jury question. The juror wanted to know why she chose a Belgian Malinois. Black answered, they are a very powerful canine, very agile. I had just lost my German Shepherd, and I could not replace her. Another juror asked a question wanting clarification about training with removed remains and if they actually alert. Black says yes, but it depends on how long it's been there and how long since it had been removed. And another juror wanted to know if dogs are less likely to alert the longer the primary scent has been removed. And the answer was yes. Back to Sanger cross-examining Black. He asked her if the dog searched outside the lattice work but got no alert, and she answered, she showed no change in behavior on the outside. Sanger tries to establish that even a full alert is only an inference, correct? Prosecution objects, which was sustained. And then he was back after Adela Morris. Remember, she was the first dog handler on the stand that we heard from, and she also founded that organization that a lot of these handlers are certified with. The question from Sanger was, you're good friends with Adela Morris? Question. Answer, we're associates. At least he's not asking about dog friends again. Okay, moving on. Sanger asks, you can't tell what your dog is smelling, can you? Answer, they cannot tell me what they're smelling. And she smiled after she said that. I can just picture it. That's funny, like a coy smile. Sanger clarifies he's not trying to demean her profession as a dog handler. What? All of a sudden? I mean, I beg to differ. He's picked them apart. And in the introductions for the dog handlers, the focus for each and every dog handler so far has been to belittle them and discredit them, in my opinion. Annie has a 93% accuracy rate, according to Black. And now we get to hear from Mr. Misek on his cross-examination of Black. Black agreed that sunlight vaporizes the scent, and also agreed no bones or body parts were found at Ruben's house. Black did not agree that dogs are attracted to other dogs, not even when they're in heat. They established that heat itself and wind also play a big role in the searches. It was also established that her dog Annie trained to locate remains after they had been removed. However, not long term, only a few hours after removal so far for the training. Misek wanted to know what Annie not alerting indicates to her. Sanger objects again, and Misek withdrew his question again. And then he says, that's all I've got. That's one of his little closing sentiments. Do you get the same feeling I do that Misek is just a wee bit intimidated by Sanger? The judge called a 3 p.m. afternoon break. They were back at 3:20 p.m. To put this into perspective, some of you may not be aware that Paul is facing 25 to life if convicted, and his father, Ruben, is only facing a 3-year maximum sentence, albeit that he is 81 years old. And the mother, Susan, which many feel was involved, has not been charged and probably never will be. There were no more questions, and Black was excused at that time. Judge O'Keefe calls for the next witness, and the prosecution says, quote, Your Honor, we are speeding right along. My next witness will be here at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. Court adjourned early at 3:20 p.m. I have a baby tidbit for you guys. So as you know, Stockton is Kristin's hometown. And if you want to get a feel for it, we have some videos on our playlist where we visited there in 2021. I know some of you don't even live in the United States. We have a few viewers from India, the UK, a new one from Australia that's been really interactive with me. You'll see on the playlist we visit the Pixie Woods, and I bet Kristin visited there as a little girl because all the local kids do. It's been there forever. There's a nice waterfront hotel, And we also visited an amazing Cambodian temple, and there's really cool architecture down there. A few videos where we're just driving around. So check it out if you want to know more about what Stockton's like. I've noticed it's been a minute since we've heard anything or seen any photos regarding the Smart family and how they're holding up. We were getting some little updates sporadically. What do you guys make of it? Do you think maybe they asked for privacy? I would expect they're still attending. This has to be extremely difficult for them, and my heart and prayers are with them throughout this trial.
Paul Flores is accused of murdering Stockton native Kristin Smart after a college party in 1996. His father's accused of helping to hide her body, which has never been found.
Testimony is set to resume tomorrow morning.
As always, justice for dear, sweet Kristin. She's always on my mind.
If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just be love and watch the smiles come.
Thanks for watching.
Bring my spirits up.
Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers.
There's some shit